this is new, where we have the USAID collapse. We have the UK Prime Minister a couple of days ago saying that pretty well the same is going to happen to the UK aid program. And the result is, as somebody has recently said to me, it's unavoidable now because of all this lack of norms, lack of money, lack of faith, lack of humanity, that we must remake the way we deal with people in the world. So it's not just about mediating conflicts anymore, albeit that's super important, but it's about trying to reflect on what is the value of aid, humanitarian development. We clearly haven't made the case very successfully because it's so easily ripped away from us by these decisions. What does it bring in terms of a joined humanity? What does it bring, therefore, in terms of security? Because, of course, people like me would say that actually aiding people and allowing them to engage with their unexpected neighbors and demonstrating that there is a future, all the things you've reported on, and that enhances security. But crucially, and I think this is where the future comes, what is the reset that we want to see? What kind of aid structure do we want to see? Do we still want to see the same big agencies and small local deliverers? Do we want to see a way in which humanitarian development isn't separated by mandate and beliefs and people?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're seeing at the moment, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that there is an attempt by taking away aid to sort of burn things down, but we aren't really seeing an attempt to reform and rebuild.
No, we're not. And the worry that I have, and I think you have, is that at the moment, with all the onslaught of these different decisions, as you say, it's not just US, UK, I think Netherlands has done the same, and we see it more broadly. It's partly a reset to the global south and the new donors. It's partly a reset to the new donors who actually host governments in the places of need. But what we don't see at the moment is a preparation in the leadership of humanitarian development agencies to see the way out. Because, of course, they're absolutely frantically and correctly focused on what's going to happen to their programs. Waivers from Washington are now ignored, given a few weeks ago and now ignored, and money's not delivered. People are sacked or furloughed or suspended. They don't know what's happening. So the panic, understandably, is on survival now.
Yes, and we talked there about those leading these programs, but has that message about the cutting of aid and these programs reached those that it was serving, essentially?
I think it's beginning to. You know, it's interesting the time taken to get from turmoil in capitals to the deprived need in cities and villages and deserts across the world. But it's getting there now. And it's partly been slowed down, I think, Yalda, by the fact that it's chaos for these agencies. They don't know if they've been cut or not. There was supposed to be a review period. Now we're told there's nobody left in USAID to do reviews. What do we do with our staff? It's total contradictions. So, and I know from being in close contact with many of these agencies that they're just clutching at straws to see what they should do for their own duty of care, not just to their own staff, but to the people that you mentioned.
What do you recommend? I mean, you've had decades of experience in this field. How do you think that, you know, those who are trying to rebuild and rethink what the future should be, what is the kind of messaging they should put out there, and what kind of restructure needs to take place so that, you know, foreign aid, the importance of that, the soft power of that is taken seriously?
Yeah, well, first of all, it should be taken seriously, and that's our fault, I think, because it's not, clearly. I mean, the first resource for the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom was to get rid of aid. I'm not sure how he looked at other sources of income. He needed money, that's clear. So we haven't made the case after these decades since the Second World War. But I think what is needed, Yalda, is indeed an approach which stresses the following new elements, and they are new. Number one, let's not have big agencies from the north. And of course, the UN agencies are the biggest, and they're wonderful people and close friends and do great work. But let's not have them be the dominant power. let's try to flip the curve. So you have to have a blueprint, I think, to be practical terms, a blueprint which is to be debated, consulted in an iterative way about what is the new business model likely to be, what are the principles upon which it is based, attention to local people, respect for the global south, the need for funding to come from local sources. Communities do all the work for IDPs. You know that, before the agencies arrive. We can't go back. We're not likely ever to go back to the world that we have lived in these last few years. Aid agencies have grown enormously in their numbers, as you know, and now they're having to cut back because there was a wealth of support. We have to actually look 4 years ahead, not just next year. That's demanding a lot. And who does it? Who can do this? It's not fair to ask individual agencies to do this because their primary interest is survival and duty of care to people they serve. There needs to be a somewhat independent but overall sense of what's right. It needs to include, obviously, experts, but it needs to include humanitarian experience, and it needs to include, I would say, the authority of the United Nations, which is still very important. It's not started yet. I think Tom Fletcher, who, as you know, replaced me in OCHA, is just the sort of person who is very interested in that stuff. So what we should be demanding is, yes, survival, but actually reset.